Hey folks, how's it going? So, I want to talk a little bit about food security. Not food insecurity, but food security. And the reason I want to talk about this subject today is because yesterday I was out at the store picking up a few things. And granted, we're in the middle of the holiday season. Christmas is just a few days away. So, a lot of people are doing a lot of shopping, getting ready for Christmas dinner. They're doing a lot of holiday baking and so forth. So, even giving that, I've noticed a few things in the grocery stores. And the biggest item that I've noticed that we've had an issue with, or at least around in my area, and I've heard other people talking about it as well, is an egg shortage. So I tend to go to a lot of different stores, not necessarily because I have to, but because I try to keep an eye on what uh, the supply is like in my area. Some stores get hit really hard with disruptions, other stores not so much. And just like keeping track of the news, looking at all the different media sources, whether they're left leaning or right leaning, if you go to a bunch of different stores, you can kind of get a better sense of availability of certain items. Eggs are one of the issues that I found at every store I've been to. The cheapest place I found eggs, of course, would be Walmart. Uh, the last time I went in there, they had about half the normal stock that they usually do. And the eggs were right around $3 a dozen, give or take. The next store that I usually go to is kind of one of those discount chains that's where it's a cost plus market. Basically, they claim that everything on the shelf is at cost and they add 10% at the register. I know that's not accurate because some of the prices they charge on the shelf, there's no way that's what they're paying for the product. So I don't believe that. But a lot of those stores, they're very, very low on eggs. They have probably 10 to 20% of the supply that they normally have. And the prices were between $4 and $5 a carton for a dozen. Another store that I go to is called Little Giant. It promotes itself as being a farmer's market type store, but it's not really. It's just a standard grocery store. They are among the most expensive. They had about 50% of the eggs that they normally carry, and the cheapest they had was just over $5 a dozen, and some were almost $7 for like an 18 count. So this is a trend that I'm seeing people talk about in other parts of the country. This is a trend that I'm seeing in my local stores. Now, there could be a lot of debate as to whether this is due to avian flu and things like that, or if it's a push to get people off of meat meat food products, meat based food products, or animal based food products, I should say. Uh, but among those other shortages that I'm seeing is every store that I've been to is ramen completely out, or if they do have it, they only got one or two boxes and maybe a handful of individual packets. Now, a lot of the baking supplies that are uh, in short supply right now, you can chalk that up to, again, the baking season, the holidays, and all that. Ramen is not one of those things that can be included in that. Unless you're a college student or on an extremely tight budget, scraping the bottom of the barrel, you're not going to be buying ramen for Christmas. Uh, so that kind of indicates that there's either a shortage in supply or people are just struggling that hard and then they're buying the most the largest amounts of the cheapest food they can get, ramen being one of those. And I've seen this trend at every store I've been in. So again, it's either supply or it's because people are buying that particular product over everything else. I've seen a few other issues. I've seen one store I went into, they had maybe a third of the milk that they usually do. Their cooler was, they had a lot of empty space in their cooler. And milk prices, along with egg prices and everything else, has started going back up. So all of this ties in with what I wanted to do this video about, and that is, we all know what's coming. This is all a plan. Some of this is manufactured, some of it's not, but it's all planned in a way to push the Great Reset that everybody wants, that all the elite want to put into effect. And Prepper Nation just did a video on this, and it was a great video about the World Economic Forum and their blueprint for what would happen by, I think it was 2030. And I'm not going to go down the 8 items that they laid out. If you want to know more about that, go watch his video. But this just reminded me that the whole plan behind the Great Reset is to consolidate power in the governments and the elite behind the government, as well as control the population through food. There's a push to move people away from animal-based food products. Honestly, I think a lot of it's due to the money that can be made off of people, but the vast majority of it is because they want to be able to control people. If your food is being produced by large corporations with millions of acres of land to grow a certain crop to produce fake meats, or if you've got land and facilities to produce insect-based meats or lab-grown meats or 3D printed meats or what have you, you can make a killing off of this new transition that they're trying to push. So the one threat to that is the small farmer. People raising backyard chickens, the small farmers raising cattle. In order to make that transition work, you have to eliminate your competition. So they want to eliminate, again, the small farmers, backyard chickens, and they're doing this all under the guise of climate change to reduce emissions and stop global warming. That's not the reason why they're doing it. That's the excuse they're using, but that's not the reason they're doing it. The reason they're doing it is for power and money and control. So we have to fight back. As Prepper Nation said, we have to fight this with everything we've got. This push to put us all on this fake, artificial, synthetic, engineered, and chemically ridden food. We have to fight that push in any way we can. The best way we can do that is to produce our own food. As I've said many, many times, we have to produce our own food. If we can't produce our own food, we have to partner with people in our communities that can produce the food that we need. That is the only way we're going to be able to fight this. Food security. I've talked about it many times before. Being able to produce your own food or barter with other people that produce their own food will give you a security that those in power, the elite, the people pushing the Great Reset, don't want you to have. There's going to come a point where it's going to be illegal to have backyard chickens or any kind of backyard livestock. There's going to be a point where small farmers that produce heirloom meat products from heirloom stock, they're going to be under so much regulation that they're not going to be able to stay in business. We have to take it on ourselves to produce and source our own food. Because the minute they, again, as I've said before, the minute they can control what we eat and how much we get of what we eat, they can control us. If they don't, if the government provides all of the food, uh, and they don't like something you're saying or something you're doing, well, they can say, well, you're not getting any food unless you comply with what we want. So then you're in a position where, in order to feed your family, you have to comply. You have to give in and submit. You don't want to be in that position. If you can produce your own food and barter with others like yourself that produce their own food, you can resist that oppression and that tyranny a lot better, a lot easier. Now, there's speculation that at some point by 2030, they're even going to start outlawing uh, hunting, hunting deer, hunting turkey, things like that. And it's very possible because there's already a push to, there's been a push in the past to ban lead ammunition for hunting because it pollutes the environment. Um, you've got animal rights activists trying to shame people for eating meat. So there is a push, a very strong concerted effort to get everybody off of animal food products. And again, that's so they can control you and uh, and gain more power through that control. Our only way of resisting this kind of tyranny that's coming is to be as independent and self-reliant as possible. One of the things that reminded me to make this video, not just the visit I made to the store in the past 2 days, but this past weekend, I got this Southern Exposure Seed Exchange catalog. Now I get this every year, every winter. This comes out, and I love this thing because it is full of heirloom, non-GMO seeds. Uh, and these seeds are collected from people that actually grow and preserve these different types of plants. And to me, whenever I get that catalog in the mail, it's my reminder that it's time, even though it's the middle of December, it's cold, you're not able to really start any gardening right now. That's my reminder. Start making my plan on what I'm going to be growing, what I'm going to be producing for the next year. Start figuring out how I want to lay out my garden, any changes I want to make to my garden, uh, any kind of expansions or adaptations that I need to do, any anything that I need to do to support that garden. Like this past year, one thing I did was I ran a water line out to my garden to make it easier to water the garden so I could automate it easier. I didn't fully implement that because I had problems with my timer and I had issues with the soaker hose that I was using. But it certainly made it easier to water the garden because I didn't have to drag 200 foot of hose out to where my plants are from where the spigot was. So this is the perfect time to start planning on what you're going to be doing next year and start implementing any kind of infrastructure you need to put that to work. You know, running water lines, uh, building a cold frame, building a miniature greenhouse or something like that to start seeds. Anything like that. Now is the time to be doing it. You've got time off for the holidays. It's a good way to put that time to use. Speaking of the eggs that I was talking about earlier, I'm actually trying my hand for the first time at dehydrating and powdering my own eggs. Uh, I've been watching powdered eggs online for a while now. For a long time, a number 10 can of powdered eggs was $100 to $105. and there's roughly 72 eggs in each can. Well, I've been trying to figure out how to do that myself. There is a way. There's a couple of ways actually. You can freeze dry them or you can dehydrate them, and you can dehydrate them either raw or cooked. Right now, I'm trying my hand at doing dehydrated eggs raw for the first time, and I'm doing a video. I'm in the process of making a video about that. That'll be coming out probably tomorrow or the next day. So be looking for that. But those eggs in the can, the powdered eggs in the can from Augustin Farms or Eddie Hour or whatever, Augustin Farms seems to be the cheapest that I've found. Now they're down around $60 to $61, but still, $60 to $61 for 72 powdered eggs. That's a lot of money. Most people can't afford that. I could afford it, but honestly, there's better places for me to put my money. And if it can be done here at home, you can save a ton of money. Now, the eggs in the can from Augustin Farms or what have you, they're good for 10, 15 years or at least. What you do at home is only going to be good for a year or two, but you're saving that much more money, and you can always rotate. If you're constantly using from your powdered eggs and dehydrating and powdering more eggs, you're keeping that rotation going. The shorter shelf life doesn't really matter quite as much. So that's a video that I'm working on for you right now. I just started it this morning. It should be I should have it uploaded tomorrow or the next day, and I'm going to be doing more videos like that. But yeah, we really have to focus on being as self-reliant, as resilient, and as independent as possible when it comes to our own power, our own food, our water supply, because these are all things that these elite want to use to control us. The World Economic Forum and most governments in general, and a lot of people here in the United States seem to be pushing the entire world towards even more communism. Nobody's supposed to own anything. Everything's supposed to belong to the government. Everything will be better that way. Everybody will be happier that way. But as Prepper Nation said, I challenge you to look at any instance in history where communism was successful and good. Communism always ends in disaster and suffering. And right now we have to admit, especially here in America, that there is a strong push towards communism right now. And we have to be resilient and independent to be able to resist that push. We have to stand up against it for the sake of not just ourselves, but our children and our grandchildren. We have to make a stand. Sorry, folks. Apologize for that. So make plans, make a concerted effort, do what you have to do to become more resilient and more self-sufficient and independent. That's the only way we're going to be able to stand up and resist the tyranny that's headed our way. Because it is coming. Make no mistake about it, it is coming. The timeline is not set in stone, but if you ask me, it's moving a lot faster than I would have ever thought possible. 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I would never have thought we would be where we are right now. And I think every time we have an instance where, with the pandemic, for example, I think a lot of that was a test run to see just how willingly people would submit to demands from the government. And unfortunately, we saw just how willing people were to take a knee and bow down to their masters. Well, for me, I have no master. Not on earth anyway. And I will not bow to any man in government or woman in government, what have you. So, speaking for myself, I plan to resist and maintain my freedom and independence regardless of what they try to throw at me. And I hope you will too. The more of us that stand up for our rights and our freedoms, the better off we'll be, the easier the fight will be. I hope you found this useful. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. And again, stay busy, stay productive, get things done. Take care of yourselves and your family. Stay safe. And until next time, folks, I'll catch you later.